Hello and welcome again. We're here every Sunday, without fail, Autistic Radio making a live broadcast. Today it's the 555. Harry has a curated Facebook page and we get together as autistic people of a certain age to discuss the posts and bring some of our own life experiences to life. We have quite a few people here contributing today. We've got people from Scotland, the UK, and also over in Canada. If you have something to say, or if you have something to text, or if you have something that you want somebody else to say, this is where you can do it. You can join us here at Autistic Radio and have your voice on what matters to you authentically represented. So feel free to try us out and join in with us. The first post we have is from Aurora Consulting. Aurora Consulting is a genuinely autistic organisation run by autistic professionals, not autism professionals, but autistic professionals, people who understand a version of autism themselves from the inside. Aurora posts, I had a chat with someone this week about autistic people and pain. So here's some anonymised examples. Real names not used. Autistic people's pain experiences and why they might be different and how this might help us. George has broken his nose. His dad takes him to the hospital and they x-ray him. The doctor comes out after examining the x-rays and tells Mike's dad, I can set his nose for this break, but I can't do anything about the twice that he has already broken his nose before this. George and his dad had no idea that he'd broken his nose before. Another example is Tawny, playing football with some friends. Just a wee kickabout, not a big game, but she hurts her leg while being tackled. It's a bit annoying, but she tries to ignore it as she limps on it for 3 days before finally going to see a doctor to find out her leg is fractured. Marie has endometriosis. They know it's bad, but just struggles on with it. After the doctor operates on Marie, they ask how they were able to keep on working when the endometriosis was so very deep. They knew they were in pain, but since they have other chronic pain, they found it hard to gauge how bad it was by comparison. Other examples. Sam is gaming. A new game from his fave series. He hasn't moved for several hours, and it's only when he pauses for lunch that he recognises his hip has been sitting funnily, and it's aching. A different version is Jack. He slammed his thumb in the car door accidentally. It's throbbing, but he's holding it together as best he can so he doesn't scare his autistic daughter or she will panic too. The A&E nurse scoffs when Jack rates his pain as 9 out of 10 and says she doesn't even think the nail will fall off. She discharges him with no pain relief or guidance to care for it, and then it falls off less than a week later. All of these are real stories shared from autistic people. Many autistic people have also been repeatedly told that what we sense is wrong. The lights aren't too bright. The food isn't too spicy. The jumper isn't too scratchy. So many of us effectively dial down our senses. We hide and we suppress them, making it so much harder to notice when we are actually in significant pain. Interoception, our sense of what's going on inside our bodies, includes our ability to sense pain. This can be difficult to sense when we are deeply focused on something else. Reconnecting with our bodies can improve our lived experience. Reconnecting with our bodies can help improve our lived experience so very much. Learning to trust our instincts and learn how to advocate for our differing experiences is such an important skill. That's quite a lot to take in, quite a lot of different experiences there. Does it chime with anybody?
Hi, Jules. It chimes with me. One of the things that it made me think is it's the first step's figuring out that you're sore or uncomfortable, but then it's the dread of, am I going to have to see a doctor now? And I'm going to have to try and communicate this to a doctor. What if they ask me to rate my pain on a scale and I don't have any idea of like how to match my experience to these numbers or anything? I think I've definitely find that stuff overwhelming, and I recognise quite a lot of myself and other family members in some of those stories too.
I certainly do too. I think this came up just in conversation in the last couple of weeks on here. I can't do the scale, like you said, Nicola. I was once in the x-ray to have the 1 year checkup on a broken leg that was healed, but my other foot got in it, and the x-ray people said you're going to have to stay and go back to see the orthopedic guy, and it was broken. I didn't know. Same with childbirth, no problem at all. um, but I like what Jules said, that we're masking our pain, uh, because we're masking so many other things. And I really researched before childbirth how to go about it where I was not going to lose control publicly, and I didn't at all.
It's telling to me that the first two people who want to comment are both female, and I think this affects women more than it affects men. The not being believed about pain goes across women generally, but for autistic women it seems even more important that we have the skills to advocate for our pain, because we don't experience pain in the same way as others. Does that is that a man explaining back to you something that you already know? Please help me out of this.
No, you're right. I have two examples of it from around the age of 6. I was telling my aunt that my ear really hurt, and she said to a woman she was having coffee with, in this knowing way, growing pains, which I think was code for, this is just a kid exaggerating. My eardrum ruptured. Um, and later, when I was a teenager, I said to my mother, a registered nurse, that I had twisted my ankle. And she said, if the bone's not sticking out, nothing's wrong. And another person's mother took me to the hospital. It was very damaged.
I was really hurt by a dentist when I was young. I told the dentist, but he just carried on and said, made out I wasn't in pain. I've been terrified of dentists ever since.
I had to find a little way around this myself recently, because I'm being investigated. and the questions they always ask are about pain. And before answering, I said immediately that I am autistic and I have a different sense of pain than other people. Some pains appear not to hurt me, whereas other pains appear to make me oversensitive to it. And the consultant was very savvy, because they immediately came back to say that we can't experience somebody else's pain. It's all subjective and it's all created by the brain. So I felt that was quite helpful, that because I had said I'm autistic and I experience pain differently, they accepted it and they were happy to look for other pieces of evidence.
I think one of the experiences that I have about pain is that I think about pain. Like, I think to myself, oh, I'm experiencing pain. Isn't that interesting? And then I go to some sort of place where, once I understand what that pain is, maybe it's like a mind over matter or a mind over mind, because I do understand that it is a place in your brain that's telling you it hurts. Unless it's like a surprise pain, like where you cut your finger open, I can really rationalize my way out of it.
That's really interesting, because I think I do the same thing. I manage to talk to myself in my head to actually turn the pain down, to tell myself that I've realised, I've recognised the pain, I don't need the alarms to keep going off. Can we just make it hurt less now? And it works.
My mother was one of those people who believed that you if you were on your deathbed, you had a reasonable reason to phone in sick. Other than that, you worked through it, and that's been with me. And I've been in my asthma. I've literally been borderline having to have an ambulance come because I couldn't breathe, because I just left it, and I'd got severe chest infections and I couldn't breathe.
The post continues. Many autistic people have also been repeatedly told that what we sense is wrong. The lights aren't too bright, the food isn't too spicy, the jumper isn't too scratchy. So many of us effectively dial down our senses, hide and suppress them, making it so much harder to notice when we are in significant pain. When you couple this with differences in facial expressions, tone of voice and masking, it can be hard to be taken seriously by some medical professionals. Reconnecting with our bodies can help improve our lived experiences so very much. Learning to trust our instincts and learning how to advocate for our differing experiences is such an important skill. I'm sorry, I have to read that again. Learning to trust our instincts and learn how to advocate for our differing experiences is such an important skill. How can the medical profession help us? By believing us. Believe us when we say we're in pain, even if it doesn't match your expectations. Believe us, take it seriously, and help us access the support we need.
I'm concerned that there might be a double whammy for Nicola and me, because they're doing research right now about women and, you know, people listening to them about their pain.
Yeah, it is, like you said, Teresa, it's a challenge in life, and in a way I'm feeling a little bit like validated hearing everybody say this. Like, I'm trying to psych myself up to go to the doctor because I keep like having like fainting episodes and stuff. And I've been here before trying to get help from the doctors with it, and it's just kind of feeling like I have to work extra hard to be taken seriously, that I have to prepare really hard, and it just puts me right off. I'm not sure why it is that autistic women seem to have like that. It's the intersection thing, isn't it? The disability and the gender stuff, I would imagine, coming into play. So yeah, it doesn't make me feel any better, but it's kind of nice to know that it's like it is a thing, and I'm not just imagining that I'm not being listened to.
I did recently learn something that works. I summarize ahead of time bullet points on a page, and then, just like Jules mentioned, I say, I'm autistic. I need you to read this. And it has helped. It's not helpful for me to read it out loud. It's helpful for me to hand it to that person and have them read it from top to bottom, which is why I put it in bullet points.
We're just going to do a quick test. Can we take your audio on now, Raymond?
Hello.
That's working perfectly.
Thank fuck.
Yeah, we won't cut that one out of the edit. Thank fuck. This is a serious issue all round. It affects women, and then it affects autistic women doubly, but it also affects autistic men. You know, if I look at it from the male point of view, we're told constantly to put up with things, put up with pain, and then autistic men put up with so many things that they never get access to healthcare because they don't go and deal with the system. It feels too big a thing. I've emphasised the female on this, but there's a lot of guys out there that are going to say that they feel the same feelings. They feel the same issues. but then somebody here is saying in the text that they're never out of the doctor. For me, it's a whole preparation. It's a whole conversation. It's a whole writing things down on pieces of paper, like Teresa was saying. It's a preparation, and maybe we do need to have these skills of preparing to be taken seriously, men and women, autistic men and women.
That makes sense to me in this way that as boys, they're trained to suck it up, and then girls, and this is not even neurodivergent people, girls are supposed to be stoic. I guess it's both being stoic, but in different ways.
And there's a couple of contributions by text. I was called a hypochondriac, says one person, and another person says that I don't bother to go to the doctor because they don't listen to me. Somebody's made a joke to say, if you were called a hypochondriac, is it catching? Just to finish the post, Aurora Consulting are taking an attitude here of saying, here's the explanation, and this is what the medical profession can do about it. And that might work. But in reality, for me, living my life, I can't wait for the medical profession to organise themselves. I have to have useful ways of negotiating this right now. So let's put a bit of energy ourselves into thinking, how can I make sure that I get taken seriously? What are the techniques? And learn from other people on the internet. Let's not just make this a protest. Let's make this a look after ourselves, swap ideas.
I took a friend to a appointment that I had a wee while ago, and it really helped because I was recommended a treatment, and I was like, I don't want to do that, and I just didn't feel confident on my own saying that. So I just had somebody who I trusted just to come in and sit beside me while I said what I wanted to say, and I felt like it really helped. I feel like it's a little bit like if you put something in writing, or if you've got somebody there. I just feel a bit of like a reassurance that person's not going to invalidate me in front of somebody else, or they're not going to, or if it's in writing, they might take it a little bit more seriously than if I just use my words, and then they can dismiss me easily, and I don't have a leg to stand on. But if I've written it down, it's there already. I've found it necessary to do that after having a lot of bad experiences. But I was reflecting that, the worst of them were when I was younger, like maybe younger than 25. And I do wonder if as you get older, if it happens less. But I've not really tested that yet, but I'm going to have to go and do that soon.
There's a couple of experiences in the text that don't always work out. A texter says that I have an asthma check a week tomorrow. I'm expecting to take my inhalers with me, and I always take 2 empty inhalers because I will be asked to demonstrate how I use them, and I feel so uncomfortable with being asked to perform. So even something as simple as that, how do you use it feels as though you're being spoken to like a child, and it feels as though you're being put on the spot. Another texter says that I won't go to appointments on my own for my own safety. So that follows what Nicola was saying, taking somebody with you. And another texter is saying, I was invalidated at an appointment when I attended with 2 friends. So it might be that sometimes the things that we do for our own safety, like taking a couple of people with us, or that, well, mind you, that might have been too much for the doctor. Maybe one person would have been less panicky for them. Or writing things down, sometimes it looks as though we've come in with some big agenda and we can get a negative or a pushback from it. But that's down to the person, that's down to the doctor. So trying these things and them not working in some circumstances but working in others seems to be the way forward, because some people have found these things work. We're going to discuss ableism now, but it's a different version of ableism for some people's expectation, because it's internalised ableism. 12 things we need to know about internalised ableism. It's from Panda. Panda is an organisation that we follow, promoting autism neurodiversity awareness, a charity here in the UK. Internalised ableism is a thief. It steals confidence, relationships, and mental health by making disabled people believe they're the problem. By making people believe they're the problem when society is refusing to adapt. This is not innate. It's being embedded by conditioning through relentless ableist messaging, forcing us to hide our needs and prove ourselves while swallowing the shame and guilt that goes with it. But Panda says, here's the truth. Internalised ableism can be rejected. We all need to fight back against it. We need to speak loudly, we need to demand access, and we need to reject the silence. Our needs are valid and our voices do matter. The first comment we have from this is in the text, and it says that my internalised ableism originates from school. The mental health service that was there to support me, and my own GP. In all of those circumstances, everything was about compliance.
It's a bit like in trauma recovery. There's a part about learning to identify your own inner critic, like the voice that just rips into you constantly, and starting to kind of replace that with like a more supportive self-talk seems to be a lot of what I've come across so far. And the internalized ableism stuff makes me think of that. I feel like it's like almost like a not like a voice, like hearing voices, but like a program or a pattern that we run in our heads to police ourselves from the inside, so that we don't get trigger like ableism in the environment. It's like a self-policing interject, I think you would call it. And I think it's taken me like a long time, and it's still a process that I go through when like I'm struggling, not to shame myself for that.
That's really interesting. I'm not sure I understand this, but I have a life observation, and it is that I must have recognized this, and then having two neurodivergent children, different diagnosis, not autism, but significant things. I advocated for them. They are able to advocate for themselves, yet I still have the voice Nicola is talking about, the one in my head, and there is shame and guilt. That's one of the icons on this post. And I'm not sure this would work, but based on Nicola's other, I think it was your recommendation to bring somebody. When I do bring my daughter with me, this overlaps last post and this post, to medical appointments. She's very strong because I helped her to become strong, stronger than me, and she can help me when she's available too. I have noticed in that generation, they're millennials, that they are better than this than I am. I don't know if you've noticed that about yourselves.
Isn't it pressure of circumstances? I think as Nicola said, the environment.
The thing that's really helped me is being in places where I'm accepted as I am and supported.
The point about millennials is a important one, because it's where we can learn. Most of us are, 40 plus here. I'm in my 60s now. And what Teresa was saying, that there's a couple of generations below us, the people born in 1991 onwards, the millennial generation, they are better at advocating, and it was their parents and grandparents that taught them not to put up with situations. We taught them to go out there and advocate for themselves, and actually society is trying to suppress that self-advocacy in employment, in all kinds of places, in politics, because it's the genie out of the bottle. I agree with Teresa. We need to learn from the younger generations and not assume that we have all of the experience to pass on to them.
They often get away with a lot of things with complaint systems where people investigate themselves. So it doesn't matter how well you try and advocate yourself, you're going to lose because they're going to protect their colleagues. And
if we look at the post again, there's 12 things that we need to know about internalized ableism, the ableism that we have bought into and are now putting upon ourselves from our own internal voices. The first thing is it's learnt. We weren't born with it. It was put upon us from outside. it makes us feel like we're the problem. It's us saying that, excuse me, I don't mind if you, put up with my little funny ways. I am a problem. Help me. 3, it tells us to hide our needs. It tells us to cover up our differences from other people. It has its root in ableism, in the idea that if you are disabled or changed or altered in some way or different from the rest of the population, you are less. Well, you're not. You're different. It creates shame and guilt, and that's all kinds of processes from parenting to schools onwards that we need to unravel for ourselves. It pushes us to prove ourselves, become more holistic than the holistic people, to even try to overcome our disabilities to such a way that we become super at them, and sometimes that works out and sometimes that doesn't. It can harm our relationships, it affects our self-worth, it can silence us. It overall impacts our mental health. It affects our access to society, and it affects our abilities to advocate for ourselves. But the 12th one is that it can be unlearned. If we recognise that we are doing this to ourselves and we have ableism that's internalised, it can be unlearned. Quite a similar post now. From Cara Ketter, Autistic educator. After my 3rd panic attack of the morning, my partner gently said, "Hey, would you take a suggestion?" Clearly he could read that my stress level and thus my demand avoidance and need for control was through the roof. It wasn't quite low demand enough. "I'll hear a suggestion," I responded, way too defensively. His suggestion was a great one. Lying down in the dark, listening to a podcast and just chilling for an hour. However, instead, I cleaned the bathroom because I wanted something I could do and then finish with a sense of definite completion and accomplishment. And also because no one else tells me what to do. Then he did an awesome thing. He casually said, "I could watch a movie this afternoon," as I told him about a movie I'd been dying to watch recently. So suddenly it was my idea to do the thing. And I'm not feeling fully back to normal, but it was definitely a good choice for my energy and anxiety levels today.
I just wanted to jump in and say, I don't know how people cope with having partners who talk to you when you're having stuff like that happen in your head. I have all these conversations inside, and sometimes when the dog's watching me, it's a little bit too much.
They're in the moment though, so they can drag you into the moment, the dogs. Yeah, I've been doing a bit of this recently, which is like, what's that? What she said, clean the bathroom because I wanted something to do and finish with a sense of definite completion and accomplishment. Well, I don't care about the latter part. But it was just something to do, there was like a lot of housework to be done this week, and I went for it. So, but yeah, taking ownership of your situation, I think, is important. Own it.
I think what Nicola's saying there illustrates how difficult it is to have somebody else in your life around you when you're approaching a crisis. This person says that they're approaching a panic attack. Their stress levels are too high. And their helpful suggestion just can't be coped with. Even though, as the poster says, that she knows it's a good idea. That might be one of the things. Lying down and listening to a podcast and just zoning out for a while might have been the best thing. But she can't accept it because it's external and it's being imposed on them. Like, I've got somebody texting at the moment saying that they struggle with people imposing what I should do. So just the suggestion looks like an imposition. And they manage to well, the first thing is that the person experiencing it knows something that has worked in the past. You know, do something you can do, and then that will fill your time. You do the things that you can do and ignore the things you can't do for a bit. But then when the partner was a bit savvy about it and they didn't put any more pressure on and they didn't make any more suggestions, and they actually picked up on something that the person themselves had said that they wanted to do, it felt like a real kindness to them. It felt like a twig being brought as a bird for a nest to complete it. It felt like a gift, and it was acceptable. It was easier to deal with that, and so they went off to watch a film together, and that took down the stress levels. I think there's something in here about techniques of living together and coping with each other.
Before you said that, Jules, I had wanted to ask you, what is it like for you? Because you live in a household where you are experiencing this together. And do you help each other this way?
I'm 60 and and I have a long history of not managing to allow myself to be helped, and I can put myself in the shoes of the person who immediately when they're being given a good suggestion, they reject it. And I know I do that, and I know that I now have to go away, make some breathing, and then come back and intellectualize it sometimes when people are trying to help me for my own good. But I also know from the other point of view that I have to stop trying to give practical suggestions and suggestions that might help my partner when they are overwhelmed, that they actually will just say stop. And I will just say stop to them, and we are now getting it, and it's taken decades, that we will stop for each other, that our own autistic need to try and sort things out comes behind the person who's actually experiencing the most difficulty. So all the way around it, I'm going to say, no, I fuck it up more than I get it right. But I'm still trying, and I know that sometimes it works, and I know that sometimes it's possible.
I'll listen to all kinds of assistance, but I'll very likely ignore all of it. And I don't like offering people help or assistance because do I have a reason for that? I just don't like doing it. It's not that I don't want to help people. I'll help practically, but in a verbal suggestion, it feels uncomfortable. So, kind of that thing of, if I don't like it, why put it on other people? But also, this is making me kind of amused that, well, not amused, but quite content with the fact that I've not been in a relationship for a while. It's just seems dead stressful.
Yeah. Relationships are dead stressful, but then we do get other things from them. And my relationship is one that has lasted so long and started in childhood, so it's not something that's perfect. It's something that's a continual piece of work, and sometimes it's just dreadful. But the times when it's not dreadful make up for it.
What would we say was the point of this post? What is it pointing at?
I wondered if it was a kind of bit of like about demand avoidance, maybe, or about just being overstimulated.
I thought that too. And then I remembered something because of the word chilling in there. I'm older than Jules. I don't think we were raised to chill. I don't think I was. My daughter would be even better at this man because I do recall once when she was a young teen beckoning me into her room. And she was lying on her bed with her legs up against the wall, wearing the most comfortable clothes, you know. And she said, "Look at me. I'm chilling. This is how you chill."
There may have been a time in the past when we were naturally chilled. We just didn't even call it that. And what's happened is we've increasingly developed a society that's high stress. I mean, in the past, there was probably a lot of stress too. But so there's a demand for the term chill. We wouldn't say chill out if there wasn't a need for it, if you see what I mean. Whereas generally, I think people were generally chilled in the past. Who knows? There's a thing here about language as well. This thing about, I think we've spoken about this before with some posts, is in a bit where he casually said, I could watch a movie this afternoon. So suddenly it was my idea to do the thing. The way we can word our conversation so that it engages the other person and makes them centre, perhaps, primary, involved, engaged, So something there about the language. Robbie said in the text, yeah, making it a choice rather than a demand. I think in the past I'd seen Robbie talking about this very use of language. Yeah, thanks, Robbie.
I mean, you could say that the partner was being manipulative in some ways. The partner took something that the person in crisis had said that they wanted to do, and then introduced it as a solution, and that could look a bit as though somebody's pulling strings, but what they're actually doing is caring for somebody, and they've realised that no, they're not going to take a straight on suggestion, do this would help me. They're looking around for what the person themselves has said would help them, and then giving it back to them, and that has made the poster feel as though they have been cared for in a loving relationship. So that's what I'm taking from the post. And as somebody says in the text, it's a can of worms. So we're going to move on and look at the post from Reframing Autism. We often post from Reframing Autism. This one you need to go to our Facebook page, which you'll find at autisticradio.com/. There you'll get the whole article. I'm just going to pick out a few things from it. How you can help accommodate autistic adults' eye contact differences. Accept that we are listening while we are looking away from you. Suggest that activities that minimise eye contact, such as nature walks or movies and board games, would be more suitable for us. Offer to have cameras off during online meetings. We don't have cameras on at all during our recordings and broadcasts, and even in our meetings we often don't have cameras on. Have conversations with us in parallel, such as in the car or on a bench or on a sofa, without the pressure of facing someone. And the fifth one they say is to remember that eye contact is neither universal nor necessary for meaningful communication.
One of the things that I do, and I've always done this, is I take notes in meetings to the point where my sister used to sell my high school notes because I always would make 2 copies. Note taking, it continues today. I have so many notepads. I know you don't need to take notes anymore. You can record sessions, get transcripts and all of that. But it's a necessary thing for me. I also love this parallel play idea.
People don't have eye contact when on phones, so why is it necessary?
I think I'm very fortunate that I grew up in an autistic household, and there wasn't a parent constantly saying to me, look at me, I need to see your eyes to get vocalization, because none of us were particularly keen on eye contact. But I do remember leaving the house and knowing that it was a part of society out there. However, for me, concentrating is easier when I don't use eye contact. Eye contact is so full of other pieces of information, it's distracting. And also I find that the communication that comes from eye contact isn't as reliable as the words that people say or the intonation that they use. I find that there's often a mismatch between the smiley eye contact that people give and what they're actually saying. So it's almost as though, concentrate on my eyes, be beguiled by my eyes, and I'll fool you with what I'm saying to you.
I was able to look into my children's eyes when they were babies, and I always have been able to look in pet's eyes. I have a dog. I also think that when I'm talking about my special interest topics, I might look in people's eyes.
I have no real problem with eye contact. Which sometimes makes me feel a bit of a fraud.
Yeah, you're coming across the variety of autism there, and often we say things and you're in a group and lots of people chime up and they say, oh, I feel that too, or that's important to me. But then you yourself, it doesn't feel quite as keen as everyone else is feeling. And because you're autistic, you're not willing to just accept that and go along and feel it and just be carried away with that. You actually have to be honest and say that out, or realise it for yourself. But there's the rub. That doesn't make you fraudulent in any way, because the difference is so enormous. But we're constantly coming across these things where our own personal version of autism doesn't fit so much of what we hear other people saying about their version of autism. And this constant feeling of being fraudulent that goes a little bit with that ableism situation.
Yeah, kind of like ableism. I've stared so much in interview situations at someone that they got deeply uncomfortable.
Would you mind if I ask you a little bit about this, Ray, though? We can cut it out from the edit if it doesn't work through. Because I would say that I am uncomfortable with eye contact. But I have learnt to give eye contact throughout my life. So I can mask eye contact. I can either give it without feeling too much, I can cope with it, or I can pretend and just aim above somebody's eyes. But my actual preference is to look away while people are speaking so I can concentrate on what they say. If I needed to try and convince them, or I can do all the eye contact. Is there something about what I'm saying that chimes with you?
Absolutely. My favourite environment for communication is walking with someone in tandem. We're not looking at each other, we're kind of riffing into the air with each other. Now, there will be an occasional point where we have to maybe negotiate eye contact and, make that form of contact. And an interview is just one of these scenarios that you get into. It's highly constructed, and you're told, conditioned into thinking you have to maintain eye contact. And so you train yourself to do it. You can get quite good at it. So I just see life as kind of like a mixture of things. There are certain traits or elements of the autistic experience that I can fully identify with. It's mostly mental. But things like social niceties and conforming to social engagement, I see as a give or take relationship.
There are people that are listening to this, Ray, that are going to say that what you're doing there is masking, and you're expressing that you're actually quite comfortable with those situations where you have this technique, this masking technique of dealing with it. But you're also saying that if you were just going out for a walk, there's a comfortability in the fact that you don't have to do this mask, this technique. Some people listening will say all masking is damaging because it's denying yourself. But you're describing it as a kind of way of getting through life, a compensation that you make to the rest of the world to rub along with it.
Well, there's the thing, that's late diagnosis, isn't it? To be 60 or 59 when you're diagnosed. That's a lifetime of doing things another way. And of course, that then makes you reflect on that unhappy thought of like, what if I'd found out earlier? How would I have done things? But, I did things the way I did them, and I'm in this story. And this story's continuously unfolding. So, yeah. But I would never say I was uncomfortable with conditioned behaviour. I like the random, I like divergency, I like moving into difference.
In some ways it sounds as though you're saying you're proving yourself as not a victim because you can handle it and you've got a technique. It's taking control from your own point of view in some ways, from my reading of what you're saying.
Yeah, it's all I've got, I wouldn't say it's been entirely successful.
I can read that text, or the person can read it themselves.
Yeah, I used to hate job interviews because I'm sat there and the person sat opposite me and I'm staring at the bridge of their nose, and because I don't really know what to do. But what I want to do is to look around and map the space I'm in so I can feel the space I'm in, because that's the way my brain works.
I just want to give some room to Ray because every one of us is different. That eye contact may not be one of your primary issues. I wish there was a positive way to say this. Eye contact might not bother you as much as it might bother some other people in this world of great difference. And also, it's probably true what Jules is saying. But I can distinctly remember being taught to do this and identify without looking at the brow ridge or whatever. I think I would give up eye contact if I could, and that I have developed ways, as I say, like in business, my way was to be the note taker.
So are we, in a sense, hiding when we avoid eye contact?
No, I think we're preventing ourselves from melting down and allowing ourselves to be able to be there. I think. I don't think I could be in as many places if I had to have eye contact all the time. I've learned enough to mask eye contact. And I've been very successful in a career that burnt me right out, which required a lot of eye contact. I've been highly, highly trained. I worked for a large newspaper. I think they spent a lot of money training me. I think in large newspapers, a lot of the writers in different roles are autistic people, and so they'll invest a lot in you. But I don't, well, I lost the question, but maybe not for some people.
The question is, are we hiding if we avoid eye contact? I think that's the interpretation that a lot of neurotypical would put on it, that because we don't keep eye contact, that we are hiding something or we're avoiding something. But most autistic people would say that what they're doing is they're avoiding an overwhelm of different sensory inputs, because our sensory inputs from listening, smelling, hearing, touch, everything around us are often quite loud, quite big for us, that taking out one of the stimuli is a way for us to focus and concentrate. Hiding, I wouldn't be comfortable with saying that I was hiding. I would be saying that I was controlling and managing my own inputs, and I believe that that's my choice and up to me, and that I shouldn't be forced to involve myself with what I see as less important sensory inputs like eye contact when I want to listen to what the person's saying.
To me, it doesn't feel like a priority, if that's possible, because I know what your face looks like and I don't need to look at your face, but your desk is 3 feet by 5 feet long and your chair's not pulled under it properly, and you have a series of pens and there are bookshelves and there's a window and the ceiling, and that's the priority to me.
The idea that you might be hiding, I think, can be made even worse. And I think there was a period of time, I'm not sure when this was popular, part of popular culture. It was, are you lying? Because there was something in the 70s about if you look this way or you look that way, you were probably lying. I think I wouldn't say hiding, but it's kind of close to it. I would say protecting.
The word may be avoiding, because avoidance has been a diagnosis I had before autism. And what I was saying in the text there, reflecting on GR's idea of mapping the space, sometimes for me that is far too intense. I mean, I love space. I love mapping space, but in the human social environment, the big city, the sirens you hear outside, some of this is too much for me, and that's where I tend to want to hide in forms of avoidance and not confront it, which I can see and empathise with, that people feel about eye contact.
So to sum up some of the text here, eye contact, it's too intense. Eye contact, it's really difficult doing lots of things at once, and I'm not sure if I give eye contact or not if I'm concentrating on listening. Eye contact, I have audio processing issues, so it's harder to work if a lot is going on. So the person's saying that just removing the eye contact from the scenario means that they have more bandwidth left to do the thinking about the actual words and the other stimuli that's coming.
Can I ask finally, how much eye contact? I mean, can we give brief moments of eye contact? I mean, it's like I would never stare at someone continuously. It's not even possible. So I wouldn't maintain eye contact for the entirety of an interview. No one can do that. But then again, I don't think no one can totally avoid eye contact either. But maybe I'm wrong in that one.
I would say the way it's been put to me is that we, as a group, have difficulty performing eye contact in a way that is natural to our own cultures. So we live in a Western, Northern Hemisphere, white Anglo-Saxon culture. And in that culture, eye contact has a very, very important place in communications and in social situations. And people tend to prioritize what they see from people's expressions to read their emotions rather than listen to what they hear. So it's always a balance depending on the culture you're in. Some cultures have a lot less eye contact in them. And we as autistic people don't generally fit the norm within our societies, and we have to actively concentrate on looking as though we're doing it for the right amount of periods and not doing it too much so it looks as though you're staring out, and not doing it too little so it looks as though you're inattentive. And that is a masked set of behaviours that we learn as a way of getting by. And then unravelling that for ourselves possibly means that we can perform that during the day, but we need to take downtime from that at other points. It's not as though there's a right and wrong way, but there is a right and wrong way that does appear to be enforced upon us if we're not careful.
Just one more thing. You know, eye contact in the societies that we live in can mean a lot of things, like the example I used where some people would say, you know, you're not truthful. For women, sometimes if you just make glances and then go back to not looking and occasionally make a glance, probably not now, but at least in certain periods in time, I think it was seen to be coquettish or flirting, and that's a real problem for autistic women, to be misunderstood that way.
Even for men, you know, to give unnecessary or undue attention to someone can be a bit, you know, I can't even think of a word for it.
Oh, goodness me. The creepy old man on the bus because he looks a bit too long. You know, a couple of seconds instead of 1.2 seconds is inappropriate. There's so many social learnt behaviours and responses in this that autistic people often get wrong. Into the world of the autistic teacher again now. Autism and ADHD are often found together, like an umbrella on a wet and windy day. ADHD and autism often go together. According to the scientific literature, 30 to 80%, obviously these figures are difficult to justify their numbers, but let's say 30 to 80% of autistic individuals also present with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Conversely, 20 to 50% of those with ADHD are also autistic. The combination is often called AUDHD by the neurodivergent community. Until 2013, when the wording in the DSM-5 was changed, the American reference book on mental health, you could not be diagnosed with both, despite it being such a common occurrence. So up until very recently, there were groups of professionals working in autism and groups of professionals working in ADHD, and they were absolutely adamant that they were working in separate fields. And it has only come about because of the work of autistic people and advocates in the main that AUDHD is accepted by some people. ADHD and autism. Both are a neurodivergent neurotype and have similar brain structure differences according to the recent studies. Some people even believe ADHD and autism are part of the same thing, with a different presentation. While there are so many similarities, there are also differences. So what's it like to have both? Well, as you can expect, it would be a challenge. Being autistic and ADHD can be very challenging and unique for every individual. ADHD can make it difficult to focus, control impulses and regulate energy levels, while autism can affect communication and social interactions. When these two come together, it can feel like an internal battle. I'm going to leave the post there and let people speak from their own experience here.
Well, given the difficulties in getting an ADHD diagnosis, I don't know how many of us in this autistic radio world are actually ADHD.
My assessor said he thought so, but I'm kind of like, I kind of find myself rejecting it and like putting a lot of those symptoms down to trauma and like dysregulation in that way. And in a way, I don't think it really matters because I feel like the goal's regulation. So whatever gets me there is fine, and I don't need to split hairs too much. But I think I can it makes a lot of sense in my younger years as well. It's like there's part of me that's super sensitive and like gets easily overstimulated, and then there's like a wrecking ball part as well.
Unfortunately, in this world of experts and semi-experts and lived experience experts, and everybody thinks they're an expert, when nobody really is, it really depends on who you meet first. If you meet a clinician that's into the diagnosis of autism, you might be recognised as autistic with the amount of different things that you can present of fitting that criteria. And if the professional or the other person is interested in ADHD and you're autistic, there's enough in the autistic experience to put you into that fold. So one thing I would be cautious of is if I had a child and it was diagnosed with ADHD, to immediately be placed on drugs to reduce their symptoms, as they call them, but also reduce their ability to act naturally and normally in society. If you're diagnosed with ADHD as a child in many cultures, they drug you up as quickly as they can, Ritalin, etc. And unfortunately, that means that misdiagnoses can sometimes mean that autistic people are unnecessarily medicated.
I was going to mention medication there, Jules, because a lot of people online who talk about this, who are seeking an ADHD diagnosis, are seeking medication. They want medication. So their life situation must be of such quality that that's what they want. So, yeah, I see what you're saying about misdiagnosis, but there's this other side of people who are seeking something here in that diagnosis. When I got my assessment for autism, it did say in the letter that I wasn't presenting as ADHD, even though there was a bit of me thought I was because of concentration issues. But I think a lot of what can be termed problematic in my situation are just things I need to accept as in a more positive light, as variations on behaviour that I just need to own and get a bit more into and use well.
My son was recognized as having ADHD when he was 6, not by me. I just thought he was a child. I did not want to leave it up to the school to have their psychologist do it, so I took him for private testing because, I just loved the kid any way that he was. But one day when he took the medication, he came into the house. I was in the kitchen. He was outside playing. It was heartbreaking. He said to me, "Is this what all the other children feel like?" Now, he's an incredibly artistic person, and so it was important for him to spend a lot of time not on that medication too. So it was useful, but even today, he needs to be his expressive, artistic, beautiful self, not on the medication sometimes. And then there are other times where he recognizes as an adult, okay, now this next set of few hours, I'll take it. Both of my children always thought there was something neurodivergent about me, but that it wasn't autism. They said, take the medicine and see what happens. But I'm not also. I don't have this dual diagnosis. I'll add, though, that he had auditory processing disorder, which was really important for us to learn about, and that medication doesn't help with that. Working out your auditory processing disorder has a whole other type of treatment that can be really effective. And I don't think that is explored enough with people and could be very helpful to people to know. But I think we're all just beautiful people, and the world should be making room for all of us.
I think that's really powerful testimony there, Teresa. You have a family with an adult who is making decisions for themselves about when not to use the medication, and that adult has grown up with the medication in a household that has recognised that there will be times they can take control over the medication doses and how to use it as a tool. And that's really important. I think what Ray's saying about the people out there at the moment who need to get hold of their medication, they're wanting to experiment with drugging themselves to alleviate things. And that's important too, but they are adults and they will have the opportunity to make decisions for themselves. We do tend to over-medicate ourselves, and we do tend to take medications in very high doses, when actually maybe the help in many medicines could be at much lower doses, and we don't lose a sense of ourselves under the medications. I self-medicate with all kinds of things. I'm not trying to say that all medication is bad. We have lots of people here that use different antidepressants and different medications.
I see medication as a relationship. I've probably said this before, like going to see the doctor is like having a chat with someone in order to maybe then forget why I went there in the first place because somebody official said something to me. But medication is a relationship in the sense of what you're saying about dosage. I'm currently experimenting with microdosage, and it really is bringing home to me the idea of like what kind of relationship am I having with this experience, like the expectations and the intentions, but actually what is physically happening in my body. And it may be reaching to a point of non-use eventually, but it's interesting. It's certainly not doing what it says on the tin, but it's doing something.
Yeah, lots of different people with lots of different adaptions and lots of different ways of dealing with things. It's not one person that's going to tell somebody else the best way. People have to figure it out with all these different influences. In the text, I have found out that I'm ADHD as well. I'm now waiting for an assessment. The traits someone who was fitted. Oh, okay. The traits. There are additional traits that did not fit my previous autism diagnosis. The main problem is that everything is solely based on deficits and strengths being ignored. So everything based on deficits and the strengths are being ignored. To which a texter has replied, yes, deficits are strengths in different lights and different frameworks and different circumstances. And the texter goes back to say, I just want assessment for recognition of what I find difficult and what help I need. And there's an agreement from another texter there to say that that is really the nub of it. People want to be assessed so that they can be recognised, but they want the recognition to be under their control so that they can express what they find difficult, and also they can control what help they need in response to that. Well, we're coming up to the time now. Is there anything people would like to make absolutely certain gets included in the edit? Anything people want to go for? thank you everybody for taking part today, and thank you to all the people who take their time to post on Facebook so that we have things to work from. Harry arranges this, and he will be back next week taking his normal place on the 555 Harry's Spectrum Voices Facebook conversation. Thanks everyone.